Have you heard about the new ban that is going into effect January 1st in 2025 for the sale of all RVs in 6 states? Yeah, you've heard me right. 6 states are banning the sale of motorhomes and RVs as of January 1st, 2025, just a little over a month away. I'm Donna Bordeaux with Campground Accounting. You may ask yourself, as a campground owner, how does this affect me? Well, it has very broad-reaching effects and very dangerous. So first, let's talk a little bit about what the ban is. The ban is that no vehicles over 8,500 pounds GVWR are able to be sold unless they meet the Clean Air Standards Act. This Clean Air Standards is set in place by California as emissions amounts, and from what I understand, all the other states that are in this same aspect have to follow the same rules as California. It's a federal law, but somehow California is carved out of this. So this American Clean Truck Act, the ACT, is the whole issue here. And the RV industry expected to have an exemption from this, but that has not come into effect. And it's very questionable whether it will or not. So the latest and greatest was that Newmar sent out a letter to all their dealers in these 6 states saying, we will not deliver any coaches to you beginning January 1st, 2025. Wow. All right, so I know the big question is, what are the 6 states? Okay, so we've got California, Oregon, Washington. Those are our West Coasters. And then to follow are Massachusetts, New York, and New Jersey. Those 6 states, you will not be able to buy a Class A or Class C, and some Class Bs are questionable because they can't meet the EV standards and the emission standards that are required under this new law. Now, this new law is designed primarily, it sounds like, for semi-trucks and long-haul truck drivers. And they fully expected to have an exemption carved out because motorhomes don't usually get driven that many miles. They're not really affecting the clean air standards the way that a semi-truck putting hundreds of thousands of miles on it a year is going to do. Again, going back to campground owners, how does this affect you? Well, if you consider that anybody in California cannot purchase or register, and those are the 2 criteria. Used motorhomes are okay. They cannot purchase or register a new motorhome in any of those states beginning January 1st. First, I don't know that changes the campground industry right away, but long-reaching, this has big effect. And I think it'll probably be hashed out in the long run because RVIA is going to get heavily involved and get more noticeability of what's going on here. They're basically trying to put an industry out of business. So we can't have that. We got to move forward. What are the proposed responses? Well, first, I predict the value of used RVs in those states is going to go way up, especially if you've got a 24 model. Also, there'll probably be some bigger sales here following the end of the year in 2024 to avoid that whole problem in January and get ahead of it. So you may see inventory clear out in those states from RVs. But as a campground owner, the big things you might want to consider is, what are you going to need to do in the future? Are you going to have to prepare for smaller RVs? Are you going to have to watch out for the 10-year rule? That's going to probably become more of an issue, and make sure that you do make common sense decisions on who you allow in your park. But I personally don't think that slows down the campground industry. I think there'll be more people moving out of those states and into friendlier states. Also, knowing the ingenuity of companies, people are going to figure out how to license and buy an RV in another state. Perhaps set up a secondary residence in friendlier states like Montana, South Dakota, Texas, places like that where they can schedule to move their primary residence. You're going to see a movement here happening one way or the other. I don't think the RVers in those states are going to just lay down and forget about this and say, oh, well, we're done RVing. I don't think that's going to happen. There'll be some movement, but this is really a serious thing that you need to get involved. Make your legislators aware of what's going on and follow this information. I'll include a couple of links to some other videos down below that have a little more detail than this if you want to dive in. But let me know how this affects you and what you foresee.